Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Noam Chomsky and Jeffrey Epstein. Alright, I guess I've been putting off my assessment of the Noam Chomsky profile long enough. He's back in the news. Noam Chomsky, who was a media darling, social engineering, linguistics, father of poppycock for most of my life, for decades, using Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a CIA clandestine service, federally funded spook university that graduated Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, from MIT. And don't forget that Benjamin Netanyahu refers to himself as a Holocaust survivor, despite the fact that he wasn't even born during the Holocaust. All you have to be is Jewish, right? And Noam Chomsky is as Jewish and as Yiddish as you can get. And Noam Chomsky is a schmuck. He's not a mensch, he's a schmuck. All right, so with that, let's dive into the odious character that is the father of modern linguistics, as if there was such a thing as a father of mendacity and lying and liar, liar, pants on fire. It was going on long before Noam Chomsky was born. It will go on for thousands of years after Noam Chomsky is deleted from our vernacular and deleted off the social media platform. Noam Chomsky, whose real name is Avron Noam Chomsky, born December 7th, 1928, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, a port facility and spook town. This is home to where William Link, a creator of Columbo, who was a Jewish man, Polish Jewish, Hungarian Jewish man, who portrayed himself as an Italian lieutenant police detective of the Los Angeles Municipal Police. William Link. Richard Levinson. Chuck Barris of The Gong Show was born a few months after Noam Chomsky. Jim Cramer of Mad Money from MSNBC, who pimped and pumped FTX, which was used the scapegoat of Samuel Bankman-Fried, who is now fried, whose parents are law professors at the Stanford University campus and have provisional housing there. Sam Bankman-Fried, a Jewish boy from Stanford University, Palo Alto, who went to MIT, where Doug Leone, the benefactor for FTX, who funded FTX with $213 million of clandestine service, private love, to create the fraud that was FTX, created by Sequoia Capital and Doug Leone, who was born in Genoa, Italy, and grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, near the Bronx. Anyway, Jim Cramer, Chuck Barris of The Gong Show, who is a CIA operative, Richard Levinson, William Link, and Noam Chomsky. Those are 5 Jewish social engineering, liar, liar, pants on fire operatives for CIA from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And they were preceded by Frank Sturgis, whose real name is Finorini. Frank Finorini, a United States Marine, who trained the troops for Fidel Castro and Raul in Guatemala, Central America, for the so-called overthrow of General Batista in Cuba, a Navy and United States Marine controlled facility, Cuba, and we switched out General Batista for Fidel Castro, who went and traveled to New York City whenever he wanted to. That Frank Sturgis. The Frank Sturgis that participated in Operation 40, an assassination team. The Frank Sturgis that participated in the John F. Kennedy assassination in Dallas, a port facility town, and may have pulled the trigger of the kill shot from the triple underpass railroad tracks where there were no witnesses. The Frank Sturgis that involved himself in the Bay of Pigs invasion. The Frank Sturgis that was involved with Watergate and was one of the 6 burglars arrested during the so-called Watergate, burglary, which I believe there were 3 burglaries. We only talked about 1. Anyway, the installation of listening devices in the Watergate Towers apartments. and offices of the so-called Democratic Committee for President. Anyway, Noam Chomsky is up to his eyeballs with all this. He appeared on Firing Line with William F. Buckley one time only to create the illusion that somehow he and William Buckley were not chums. They're probably best friends, okay? Believe me, they get paid from the same bank accounts. They drink from the same trough of scumbag CIA liar, pants on fire. William F. Buckley is as big a liar as Noam Chomsky is. And that's like Mount Rushmore size egomaniac, narcissist, mendacity mavens. Mavens of mendacity is what Noam Chomsky and William F. Buckley were. Much the same as Jim Cramer is today. Much the same as William Link and Richard Levinson with their CIA program Columbo television 68 episodes were. Anyway, Noam Chomsky has moved on to the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona, which is a federally funded research university out in the desert. God knows what they do out there, but Noam Chomsky is in the news today because the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Noam Chomsky was in Jeffrey Epstein's appointment book and black book for his contact information and had multiple meetings with Noam Chomsky after, quote, after Jeffrey Epstein had registered as a sex offender and pedophilia criminal. And there's Noam Chomsky, no surprise, meeting with Jeffrey Epstein in much the same way that Alan Dershowitz, another Jewish person from Brooklyn, was, like Barack Obama was, like Donald Trump was. All the people that Noam Chomsky pretends to not like are like his best friends. Anyway, Wall Street Journal, I will post it, in an exclusive published today, Sunday, said it obtained Jeffrey Epstein's private calendar, which outlined numerous meetings with high-profile people, including Noam Chomsky, the famed academic and political activist. They forgot to use the word shmuck when describing the bombastic Noam Chomsky, the darling of the NPR public television show. Noam Chomsky's first response is, "It is none of your business, or anyone's." Second is, "I knew him and we met occasionally," says Chomsky, age 94. He told the Wall Street Journal in an email. Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier accused of sex trafficking in underage girls, died by suicide in 2019 in a Manhattan jail. Poppycock on that. Nobody commits suicide in a controlled setting. Poppycock. Now, is he alive or dead? I have no idea. I'm going to assume that Jeffrey Epstein is alive, and he's probably living with Noam Chomsky at the University of Arizona in a provisional housing free cottage. That would be my guess. But you're going to have to get through the gate with a security clearance to verify what I just said. In addition to Noam Chomsky, the journal noted meetings that Epstein had on his calendar were with the current CIA director, William Burns, what a surprise that would be, as well as Catherine Rumler, a top lawyer at Goldman Sachs, and a former White House counsel under President Barack Obama, among others. Yeah, I'd like to know what the others are. Please name them. Alan Dershowitz, Kevin Spacey, George Clooney. Jeffrey Epstein's meetings with Noam Chomsky appear to have taken place in 2015 and 2016. Epstein was first charged with procuring minors for prostitution, and he registered as a sex offender in 2008. So Noam Chomsky was well aware that he's meeting with a pedophile, a convicted pedophile, as well as human trafficker. In March 2015, Jeffrey Epstein scheduled meetings with Noam Chomsky and a Harvard University professor, unnamed. Don't forget Noam Chomsky was a fellow at Harvard University and taught at Columbia University, all CIA spook schools. Noam Chomsky is only associated with CIA universities, which are all platforms for COVID propaganda and poppycock. The Journal reported that months later, according to the calendar, Epstein scheduled a plane flight with Chomsky and his wife before she passed away for a planned dinner with movie director Woody Allen and his wife, Soon Yi. Remember Soon Yi, who was an adopted child of Mia Farrow and Woody Allen? He poaches his own adopted daughter, Soon Yi Lee. That's who Noam Chomsky hangs out with. Pedophilia people. Anyway, if there was such a flight, which I doubt, it would have to be from Boston to New York, which would take 30 minutes, says Chomsky. He told the Journal, I am unaware of the principle that requires that I inform you about an evening that I spent with a great artist. Well, guess what, Noam? Woody Allen is not a great artist. He's a Jewish shmuck. And I understand that Jewish schmucks like to dine together. Try an In-N-Out burger. Noam Chomsky said he discussed politics and academics in his meeting with Jeffrey Epstein. What would Noam Chomsky know about academics or politics? He's a clueless, blatant, pathological liar. He doesn't know anything about academics or education. He knows about indoctrination. He knows about rinse and repeating false narratives. He doesn't know anything about politics, and he knows less about academics. Noam Chomsky has no credentials other than his fraudulent fake certificates that he hangs on his wall or stuffs in a shoebox. Jeffrey Epstein donated at least $850,000 between 2002 and 2017 to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where Noam Chomsky taught for decades. He didn't teach. He preached. He preached poppycock. Noam Chomsky is a poppycock purveyor and preacher. And he works for the clandestine services. What was known about Jeffrey Epstein was that he had been convicted of a crime and served his sentence, Chomsky told the Wall Street Journal about his meetings. Yeah, but Noam, you haven't been convicted yet. Have you even been arrested and booked and fingerprinted? Because you sure as heck should be. Let me read you what Noam Chomsky was quoted as saying back in 2021. Noam Chomsky says unvaccinated people should just remove themselves from society. This was published on October 27, 2021. Noam Chomsky, MIT professor emeritus and public activist. Noam Chomsky says he believes that while unvaccinated people have the right to refuse a COVID jab, they should have the decency to isolate from the community for safety of others. Well, why don't we put all the vaccinated people into Auschwitz or to Dachau, which was a re-education camp, not a concentration camp, it was a re-education camp. Put Noam Chomsky into Dachau prison. That'd keep him safe. Chomsky was asked in an interview whether the COVID vaccine, which doesn't exist because there is no COVID vaccine, there's an experimental biotreatment labeled COVID-19 jab, that whether the COVID vaccine jab should be required when he made that remark. A clip of his response has garnered 1.9 million views on Twitter. Chomsky was quoted as saying, people who refuse to accept vaccines, I think the right response for them is not to force them to, but rather to insist they be isolated. If people decide, I am willing to endanger the community by refusing to vaccinate, they should say then, well, I have also the decency to isolate myself. I don't want a vaccine, but I don't want to have the right to run around harming people. That should be a convention. Hey, guess what, Noam? I'm not vaccinated and I'm not wearing a face diaper. You better stay away from me or I'll sneeze on you. You can call that assault. Enforcing is a different question, says Chomsky. It should be understood, and we should try to get it to be understood. But if it reaches the point where that they, the unvaccinated, are severely endangering people, then of course you would have to do something about it, he added. Yeah, like put Noam Chomsky into a FEMA cell. Concrete with no windows. That'll solve your problem, Noam. Anyway, that's my shtick on Noam Chomsky, buddies with Jeffrey Epstein, a child pedophile, sex trafficking. Alan Dershowitz, Noam Chomsky, William Link, Richard Levinson, Chuck Barris, and Jim Cramer, you should all be isolated in the same place, which would be somewhere near the Love Canal in an EPA Toxic Waste Superfund site. That would be my recommendation. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye now.